As our speaker today once observed, each race has its politics and its party line that imposes a certain totalitarianism over the maverick thoughts of the individual. Shelby Steele is one such maverick. Over the course of a distinguished career as one of America's leading public intellectuals, he's demonstrated considerable courage in speaking frankly and truthfully about race. As the Robert J. and Marion E. Oster Senior Fellow at Stanford University's Hoover Institution, he's written widely on race relations in America. He's been awarded the National Humanities Medal as well as a Bradley Prize. Before joining Hoover in 1994, he taught English literature at San Jose State University for almost 2 decades, before being driven out of his department for publishing this book, The Content of Our Character, A New Vision of Race in America. The book did earn him, however, the National Book Critics Circle Award in the general nonfiction category. Steele has since published 4 more books, including White Guilt, How Blacks and Whites Together Destroyed the Promise of the Civil Rights Era, and A Dream Deferred, the second betrayal of Black freedom in America. Please join me in welcoming Shelby Steele to the Heritage Foundation.
Shelby Steele is an author, columnist, documentary filmmaker, and a Robert J. and Marion E. Oster Senior Fellow of Stanford University's Hoover Institution. He specializes in the study of race relations, multiculturalism, and affirmative action. In 1990, he received the National Book Critics Circle Award in the general notification category for his book, The Content of Our Character. In 2004, Steele was awarded the National Medal of Humanities. He spent 20 years as an English professor at San Jose State University. Steele has been called a Black conservative. He opposes policies such as affirmative action, which he considers to be unsuccessful liberal campaigns to promote equal opportunities for African Americans. He contends that blacks have been twice betrayed, first slavery and oppression, and then by group preference mandated by the government, which discouraged self-agency and professional and personal responsibility in blacks. Steele believes that the use of victimization is the greatest hindrance for Black Americans. Let's see him in action and get more information. Editor, roll clip, fair use.
Whenever I see the likes of Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson on television, I say, my first response is, Black people deserve better than these guys. Blacks can do way better than these guys. And I think that Sharpton and Jackson exist basically on the belief that blacks don't have the right stuff, that they need whites' approval. I was awakened to the whole myth of Jesse Jackson by a book called Shakedown, the author of which escapes me at the moment, and how corrupt the whole lifestyle and the whole deal is throughout his life. But my big basic point is that I think that Black people deserve better, can do far better than these 2 guys who are always trotted out as the representatives of Black America. It drives me nuts that this is the way it is. Reasonable men such as yourself, we never see you. C-SPAN, sure, we don't see you on CBS. Tim Russert, you've probably been on Tim Russert now, you're going to tell me, but nevertheless, we don't see you getting that play that the Sharptons and the Jacksons of the world get, and it bugs me. I happen to be a Caucasian person, but it bugs me nevertheless that blacks are not represented by better than these 2 guys.
Thank you, Carl.
Thank you for that comment. Yes, well, I certainly agree, and this is a much broader phenomenon than just with Black America. Any time you have an oppressed people or people across the entire colonial world, across Africa, across the Middle East, across Asia, where you have a people who were once oppressed by colonialism or segregation in the case of blacks, and they are no more, now they're free, invariably you have white guilt. And white guilt needs, beating a drum here, but in a society that is now defined as white guilt, as American society clearly is. Liberalism is in a sense an outgrowth of white guilt. It's this clamoring for moral authority. Well, if I'm a university president or a corporate president or some government official or something, then in order to get that, in order to show my goodwill to this group that was once oppressed, there's got to be some sort of conduit, some sort of middleman that I can go to, and if I give him certain things, he can vet me and he can say, I'm not racist. And you can't see me, and my institution is not racist. Well, and all of these formerly oppressed groups spit up a leadership that does nothing but vet white guilt, but offer moral authority. Say, oh, so Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton say to many, as they have in many instances to corporations in America, if you give me this and this and this, then I will say you're okay. I won't say your automobile or your gas station or whatever is not. Well, I won't stigmatize it as racist. The paradox of Barack Obama is that he has a campaign that pretends or wants to transcend race. That's what makes him attractive. So paradoxically, his campaign is all about race. His special appeal is all about race and very little else. I want to talk about modern liberalism and the racial divide. I think a little facetiously call Madame Bovary liberalism, which came, I think, directly out of the 60s, did not really exist until the 1960s, but has dominated our culture ever since, it seems to me. The arc of Madame Bovary's life, you know, this is the French novel by Gustave Flaubert. Madame Bovary is seen as the sort of first modern character and modernist character in all of literature, because she is driven by the usual motivations of money and so forth. She's driven by a kind of angst, a dissatisfaction with her life. She finds herself living in the provinces in France, in a little village, a kind of a backwater. She's married to a country doctor who loves her dearly, but who is a kind of ordinary fellow, a little boring, but a decent guy. Madame Bovary, on the other hand, feels that she is better than this. That she, in that sense, puts herself above her fate, which is to live in this sort of ordinary world, and she begins to sort of project idealisms onto the world, visions of a perfect love, a perfect romance, high life in Paris, hotels, lavish dinners, beautiful clothes, and so forth. And she begins to sort of rob Peter to pay Paul, and to pay for all of this, because she begins to act it out. She takes on lovers and so forth. Then, of course, the house of cards finally collapses, and she can no longer borrow from Peter to pay Paul. Her lovers reject her, see her as a nuisance. She comes home one night, takes a handful of arsenic, and administers it to herself, and dies a rather wretched death. And so she is, in that sense, a tragic figure, and her story represents, her arc represents a tragedy, in the sense that there was this magnificent idealism that was so seductive and so charming, and then there was reality that was just plain old reality, and she was unable to accommodate. Well, keeping the arc of her life in mind, let's look at modern liberalism.
During football season this past autumn, many players, many African-American players, knelt in protest during the national anthem. In the words of our guest today, they were not speaking truth to power. They were mindlessly loyal to a black identity that had run its course. Close quote. Author Shelby Steele on Uncommon Knowledge now.
My point is that out of that came an identity, a group identity, that has been, for better and worse,
focus grounded in the idea of blacks as victims. And black victimization has become the sort of centerpiece of that identity. And that identity, I think, in the case of the NFL protesters, is sort of dislodged from reality and functions just pretty much on its own. So once they felt called upon to make some symbolic protest against American racism, they sort of mindlessly went along with that without ever stopping to investigate whether there really was oppression, to what degree of oppression is involved in American life today for blacks. My argument is that not very much.
Hey guys, it's Jose, your regular Joe Blow, keeping an eye out and my ears open to bring you our American heroes. Not talked about or taught in our schools. They never taught us this. I had to learn about Mr. Steele and the value he brings to us. Coming from the Hoover Institute, the same place where great men like Milton Friedman and Thomas Sowell and many more, many more. It is a must to learn from him. Thank you, Shelby Steele. Full salute. For your intellect and education, I will look into your books and add them to my personal library. Guys, thank you for sticking with me to the end. As always, stay free.
It ain't hard to tell. I excel, then prevail.